Right, in this presentation, we're going to look at the basic definition of sin as given by Catechism paragraph 1849, and then break it down into its major component parts that we will look at in the days to come. So, first of all, the basic definition that's given in the Catechism, paragraph 1849, is an offense against reason, truth, and right conscience. It is failure in genuine love for God and neighbor, caused by perverse attachment to certain goods. Now, there are three key points here, which we are going to look at in the next couple of slides. First of all, is the emphasis on reason and intellect. Look at that first line of the definition, that sin is an offense against reason, truth, and right conscience. Reason being our intellectual capacity to recognize the way things are. Truth is the object of our reason. It's what our reason reaches out to in the world to grasp at. It tries to grasp at the truth of things. And finally, right conscience. We haven't had the opportunity to discuss conscience yet. We will in the days to come. But if you just break down the word conscience, that prefix con in the Latin simply means with, and science, an ordered body of knowledge, right? So to act according to or with an ordered body of knowledge, that's what conscience is. So conscience is not some kind of um, overly spiritual, angelic type divine knowledge whereby we act as we should. It's really based upon the reason, the intellect. And so sin is ultimately is first and foremost a violation of our reason, of the intellectual nature of the human person. The second, it is failure in genuine love for God and neighbor. This essentially calls out the offended parties. In sin, someone is offended, right? Whether it be God, the self, or others. This is one classic misconception by people when it comes to theological concepts of sin. They think that sin is always an offense against God, but not an offense against someone else. That's simply not true. And as Aquinas actually says, all sin is an offense against God, yes. A lot of sin is an offense against self, and some sins are an offense against others. And then finally, it's caused by the perverse attachment to certain goods. Right. This gets at the object of our desire. Right. Going back to the previous section on purpose and on human happiness, the ultimate goal of the human person is to be happy. That's the ultimate desire of the will, the ultimate good that we desire, the good in which we wish to rest. All sin essentially comes from a disordered desire for something, whether it be a disordered desire itself or the object that we desire is incorrect, as we'll see in the slides to come. So let's look at reason and intellect. All sin is essentially a failure in the use of our reason or intellect. There's kind of three basic ways that the human person can fail to reason. First of all, and these kind of go in a logical order. First of all, you can just not reason. You can fail to use your own reason, and that itself will produce corrupted acts. If you don't think, then the actions that are produced from not thinking will not be meritorious, they will not be good, oftentimes they will be sinful. So the failure to use reason is a problem. Now, we will look in the days to come on qualifications to this. Some people fail to use their reason because they were manipulated or they were forced into doing something, so they didn't really think about it. Those would be legitimate qualifications, but all sin is voluntary action, meaning we choose it. If you don't choose to do it, then it can't be a sin. And so we're working under the assumption that all sin is a voluntary act, meaning an act that we choose to do. And so if you can honestly say, this is not an act that I chose to do, I was forced into it, then it can't be a sin. But it is possible to choose to do something and not think about it. We can actually choose not to think. We can fail to use our own reason. And that itself is sinful. Perhaps we have decided that we are going to think about it, but we don't think about it rightly. We don't think about it correctly. We don't use our reason as we should. This also produces bad acts of sin. And finally, we can use our reason rightly, but maybe we fail to act upon it. Nothing comes of that good reason. it was done in vain. It was futile. And so we never actually act upon the good thinking that we did. And it's important for us to understand what reason is. Reason is the recognition of the nature of something, and then we act according to what we've discovered. This gets at that idea of an offense against truth. Truth is what it is. We don't determine truth. Um, we don't make it. It's not something that we write for ourselves. It's something we recognize. It's something we discover. We discover that something is true, and then we live according to that. So, in a sense, reason is its own law. And when we discover that something is true, we act accordingly. And a kind of a ridiculous example is I would never use a pillow to drive a nail into a piece of wood in a construction project because it's not in the nature of a pillow to be able to do that. In a similar way, I would not use a hammer as a pillow. It's not comfortable. I won't get good sleep because it's not in the nature of a hammer to act as a pillow. And in fact, if I saw someone sleeping on a hammer or trying to use a pillow to drive a nail, I would consider them probably crazy, not in full capacity of their reasoning capabilities because of those actions, because they do not recognize the nature of the thing. A pillow is designed for the head to be laid upon it for sleep, and the hammer is designed to drive a nail into a piece of wood with a force. And so reason recognizes the way things are and then drives us to act according to those natures. And that kind of example, that basis will be important for us as we move forward into our understanding of what law is. Look at the parties offended by sin. All sin offends someone, and there's a hierarchy of sins, and therefore a hierarchy of persons who are offended. So let's face it, there are some things that we know by revelation, those matters of faith that are revealed in sacred scripture and sacred tradition, that we can only know because God has revealed them to us. And if we sin against those things, if we sin against charity, against love, against hope, the three theological virtues, we essentially sin against God. And that's the only offended party because they're revealed to us. They're not natural to our reason. They're not natural to us as created beings. And so when we sin against those things, we're not sinning against ourselves. We're sinning only against God because He's revealed those things and we have shunned them. Now, when it comes to matters of reason, when we fail to use our reason, when we are not reasoning, when we are doing things, or when we use faulty reasoning, we are actually sinning against ourselves by not acting in accord with the way we're made, by not using our reason, by not using our reason rightly. We're like the person using the hammer to try to go to sleep on it, or we're like the person using the pillow as a hammer to drive the nail into the wood. We are sinning against ourselves because we're not using right reason. But at the same time, we're sinning against God because it's our reason that makes us the image of God. It's in our reasoning capacities that we image God. And so when we do not use our reason rightly, when we fail in reason, we actually fail in sinning against God. Um, and finally, in matters of justice, um, there are certain actions which have effects, which have connections to, which have import for others, because we are naturally relational and communal beings. When we act so as to violate what is just towards someone else, then we sin against someone else. And so there's definitely sin, which is a violation of others. And when we violate others, when we offend others, we not only offend them, we offend ourselves because it's by our reason that we should have known. It's by our reason that we can understand that we violate others. And so when we sin against someone else, we actually sin against ourselves. And if we can sin against ourselves in that matter, then by relation, we can sin against God. And so there's the hierarchy. Some sins are against God, um, and then some sins are against ourselves and God as well. And then there are some sins that are also against others. And if you can sin against others, you can also sin against yourself and sin against God. So those are kind of the three classic offended parties of sin. And then finally, looking at that object of desire, all sin is ultimately to desire something less than God is equal to God, right? Really, it's all going back to the original sin in the Garden of Eden. It's a desire, a kind of prideful desire, to take the place of God and determine for ourselves what is good. So ultimately, as we've already talked about, that the ultimate destiny of the human person is happiness. Sin really creeps into the human person's life when we fail to recognize that final end. All right, when we fail to recognize that God is our final end, because then the second bullet point happens, we start to pursue lesser goods for that ultimate fulfillment. And as we know, because these lesser goods, these created things, these worldly pleasures, these earthly treasures do not fulfill us, we are naturally frustrated. And so we do not lead that life of happiness. And this usually leads to some form of despair or anger, and thus a kind of a genuine opposition to God. It may not be an overt anger. It may not be an overt opposition to God. We may not go around thinking that it's us versus God, but sometimes it's latent, it's hidden. We do not think about God. We think only of ourselves, and it's very clear that we reach a point in our lives where the object of our desires have always been what we've determined, and we have taken naturally the place of God in determining what is best for us, which gets us back to the violation of reason. Remember, reason is to recognize the nature of a thing, the way it's created. And when we determine for ourselves what is good for us, in place of what God has determined what is good for us, we are essentially taking the place of God. We are saying that I do not have a nature that's ordered according to God's plan. I have a nature that I get to build for myself, that I can determine what's good for me and mine. I can pursue what I want. And this clouds the reason. And we believe that we are God. We determine for ourselves what is good.